Hello, all you fantastic human beings. How is everyone doing today? First things first, if you have not planned a time to call your mother or sent her a gift, stop the video right now and go to 1-800-FLOWERS and send her something. We are not going to ignore mothers. So, especially for those of us who no longer have our mothers here, y'all are lucky. So do not let a Mother's Day go by where you don't say something to her that starts with "Thanks, Mom," and go from there. Okay, now that that part is over, hi, we're back for a WIP M Chat numero doso. We are still doing, of course, Wolf Dream Catcher by Sunniva Mister from Diamond Art Club, 42 by 60 centimeters. And we are here to both say hello,
hi,
and answer some questions. You didn't give us very many, you guys. Believe me, you don't want to just hear us sit and rattle around. Really, you want to give us something to say and talk about, because man, oh man, you know what I mean? Okay. So, Neil, you want to start with a comment on all of the birthday greetings you got and talk about how your birthday went?
well, thanks guys for all the birthday stuff. My birthday was okay, low key, but that's fine. We went out to dinner. The three of us plus my oldest stepson who was here visiting and one of our grandsons. And we had a good time. And then yesterday there was a second part for my birthday. We went and saw the latest version of the Planet of the Apes movie. So
Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes.
yeah, so that was good. Enjoyed it.
So yeah, we did. We had a good time, and Jared was with his staff people, so it was just us chickens. So that was good too. I'm always careful when I see a movie that may or may not be appropriate for Jared, and there's a story behind it, and I'll share that with you guys in a little bit. But suffice it to say, unless I know without question it's going to be a movie that Jared's going to like, or it's animated or something like that, then we try to see it when he's otherwise occupied, so that there's no question, because we do not want what happened to my ex, Jared's dad, to happen to us. When Jared was a teenager, I don't know, maybe 14 or 15, his dad had taken he and his twin stepsisters to see Marley and Me. Now, I told him, before you take Jared to see any movie, but especially one that has an animal in it, preview it, make sure that it's something that's going to work out. And so naturally, since I told him to do that, he didn't. And so he took them, and the twins were probably 10 or 11 maybe. And so halfway through the movie, well, it wasn't even halfway, toward the end, when, if you haven't seen Marley and Me, spoiler alert, turn away if you don't want to know, the dog dies in the end, after a long life with its family, because they got it as a puppy and tripped their way through puppyhood and that kind of a thing. And Jared, my son, was so upset. He got up and stormed out of the theater Okay, now my ex has a real dilemma because he can't be in the theater with the twin girls and following Jared outside. So he had to make a choice because he's only one person. He made the right one. He went out after our son, who, lectured him terribly for taking him to a movie where the dog dies. And after that, for years, literally years, and I mean close to a decade, Jared wouldn't go to anything that wasn't animated. If it wasn't animated, he wouldn't go. He had zero trust in anyone. He wouldn't go. If there was any possibility that it wasn't animated, because he was not going to take a chance of being upset like that again. And so I respected his wishes. So needless to say, it was a long time before we could get any kind of a movie that wasn't animated in front of Jared. So I'm very careful. I'm very careful about what I even watch at home when Jared's here, because I can watch something in my bedroom and, but I still will pause it or turn off the volume or turn it off if he comes into the room, because, he's vulnerable to that. And so, and I like a good horror movie, but I don't subject him to even the sounds of it because it's too much for him. So we have to go see certain movies when he's not there. So like today, as an early Mother's Day present, we were going to go see Tarot, because I want to see Tarot. Tarot, like as in the cards. Unfortunately though, we didn't finish with the animals early enough to be able to go to the showing that we could see and still make it back before his staff person had to leave for the day. So as a result, we're going to try and sneak off and see it on Monday while Jared's occupied with staff. But, these are the concessions you have to make when you have someone with special needs in your life. And like I said, Jared is 28 going on 12 or 13. So it's been a long time that concessions have had to be made, and it will be a lifetime. So that's what's happening with that. So anyway, we ended up not being able to go today, which was all right. I mean, we just took the pressure off ourselves and went, okay, Monday's another day, and we will carry on. So, and we had this WIP M Chat to do, so it all worked out in the long run. So, yeah. So, what is everybody up to this weekend? Are any of you poor people traveling? And the highways are so bad out here. It's been terrible since about 10 a.m. on Friday yesterday. So I imagine, if you're traveling to go see mom or grandma or stepmom or whoever it is you celebrate with tomorrow, it's probably a little bit clogged up where you guys all are too. But anyway, so yeah, what's the scoop? We want to know the 411 on what you're doing tomorrow. So, and again, you guys are not leaving too many questions. Just saying. There are a few though, so we are going to go ahead and start with those and get them out of the way. Denise Hudson, 4723, said, I know how much Wendy loves dragons. Oh, yes, she does. And loves to diamond paint them. Oh, yes, she does. What do you like, Neil?
Well, I like animals. I'm currently working on an owl.
That was a gift from Ray over at Sugar Ray Crafts.
Yeah, and it's pretty cool. I'm about 90% done with it, and I'm sure Wendy will show it when I'm finished.
Well, yeah.
And I'd like to do some Western themed stuff, but haven't found anything just, that pulls my focus.
So if any of you guys see any Western type canvases you think you might like, hey, leave a comment, send him an email. His email is Neal, Neal 8151 @gmail.com. So yeah, if you happen to see one, send him an email, let him know you found one, because we've been on the lookout, and all we've found really are like the ones that have like the pair of boots with the flowers sticking out of it, which is not exactly what he means.
No.
He means Western. He's a Clint Eastwood fan, so
Give me an outlaw.
yeah, see there? You see what I'm talking about? So yes, if you happen to see something, let us know, where you saw it, and he can check it out and see if there's one he'd like to get. Go ahead, Neal. What else do you like?
Well, I've done some patriotic canvases. I like spooky canvases. I did a canvas of a pretty creepy castle a little while ago. That was pretty cool. Would have been a good Halloween themed canvas. About all I can think of offhand.
Yeah, those seem to pretty well be his niche. And let us know in the comments. Don't you guys think Neal should have a diamond painting channel? I mean,
No. No.
really. I'm trying to convince him because, okay, Lizzie, here's the question you can answer in the comment section. If any of you have guys in your life that you have tried to get interested in diamond painting, do you think that they would try it if they knew that there was a diamond painting channel run by a guy that talked about guy stuff, that they could chat while they did it? What do you think? Let us know your thoughts on it. All right, is there anything else you want to add to that? Should we go to the next question?
Oh, let's go to the next question.
All right.
Darn it.
So, let's see. So diamond painting with Jack just jumped in there, went for the kill, huh, Jack? How did you crazy kids meet? How long have you been married? And how did you get into fostering bearded dragons? Well, so going way back now to 1999, we met in a chat room that was adults only. Like you had to be over 18 and all that kind of stuff, and it was harder to prove that in the early days of chat rooms. It's not as hard now, but they were more sticklers about it. I had made the decision that I was going to separate from my ex, and was kind of struggling with it, and it was under a lot of stress, and I had, I worked from 6 a.m. to noon, and then I had the kids that I would take to their various appointments all afternoon every day. And so I didn't have a lot of adult interaction. So in the evening, I, would just kind of, check around, see what was going on. And I found it in a chat room that said you had to be 18 or over to go into it. And I thought, I wonder what this is about. And so I went in there, and Neal used his actual name, which, are you kidding me? Never do that, but he did. I didn't, but he did. And so, I don't know, you want to talk about what you were doing in there, dear?
Well, I'd been married to my first wife quite a while, and we had been having a lot of issues. She, I don't know what the deal was with her I think it was early signs of dementia, because after the divorce, a couple years after, she had a stroke and developed pretty severe dementia, I guess. But, you know, she'd act like she was afraid of me. You know, we'd get in the car to go somewhere, and I'd be sitting in the driver's seat with the engine running, and she'd be getting in and seem apprehensive, like I was going to take off without her, and, you know, just crazy stuff. I didn't know this until after Wendy and I got together, but I would snore terribly, and found out later after we got together and I was diagnosed that I have sleep apnea. So I would go to bed, and my wife at the time, I don't know why, but she would stay up watching TV till 1 or 2 in the morning, smoking her cigarettes and whatever else. And she'd come to bed, and that's about the time I'd start to snore. And she purposely accused me of not snoring until she came in the room. And it's like, I'm asleep.
You were doing a lot of plotting in your sleep, weren't you?
But I decided that I wasn't going to stay in that relationship any longer, because it was detrimental to both of us.
Tell them how long you'd been in the relationship.
Too long, 28 years.
Yeah.
And you know, we had 2 kids together. They both still live up in Washington State. So anyway, Wendy and I got to talking and decided that we should meet and really see how well we liked each other.
Well, we talked in the chat room for
Several months.
And then we moved to phone calls, and we did that for several months before we finally decided to meet, because he was still, I mean, his divorce was in process, but I was still getting to the beginning of mine. And, you know, once I had made the decision that, you know, enough was enough, because I had been pleading with my ex for a long time to get some help, and because he was starting to get beyond frustrated with the kids, and the kids were getting older, and I told him that I was afraid he was going to hurt one of them, and I said, if you do that, you will never see us again, because I will take them and that will be the end of it. And so, but he swore up and down that, you know, he didn't need any help, which he absolutely did, but you know, he didn't need it, and it was fine, and not to worry about it. And you know, he tried to, once he realized I was serious, that I was done and I was out of there. He ended up breaking my oldest son's wrist when he was 10 over something stupid, and I think a video game or something, and I did exactly what I said I would do. So yeah, it was a rough time. But, you know, he wanted to try to reconcile, and, you know, oh, he missed us and this, that, and the next thing. And I said, you know, I tried to explain to you that if you hurt my children, you do not get a second opportunity to do that, period. I don't care if you reform all over the place. I hope you do. But, you know, you were warned, you ignored it, you hurt him, you're done. So, but we had been married 15 years and we had the 3 boys. And so there was a lot of, you know, back and forth, and he got into therapy and that whole thing. And I know we can make it go, you know, all of that stuff. And I really didn't want to reconcile with him, but I kind of felt like I had to see if there was really something there to save, because we did have 3 kids. I mean, we were breaking up a family, and I wanted to make sure if I was going to do that it was the right thing to do. So that took a little bit of time too. So while all that was going on, you know, we were talking, and I would, you know, I would see Neil in the chat room, and, you know, we'd talk, and he was a very good listener. And I'd ask him how his divorce was going, and, you know, which is a horrible thing. Anybody that's been through divorce, you know how terrible it is. So it was really nice that we could kind of support each other while we were going through that backlash, and I felt really bad because Neil had been in it almost twice as long as I had been in it, and, you know, just, and really miserable, and, you know, intimacy problems and that kind of thing. Don't worry, I fixed it. But yeah, he had a hard time there for a while with his ex. And so yeah, so we had other stuff, you know, clouding up our ability to really talk. And, you know, you hear all the scary things about, oh my God, don't talk to anybody you meet on the internet. And, you know, it might be a serial killer, might be somebody trying to rob you blind, and it could be all of those things. And so I was taking it good and slow, because the last thing I needed was anything else to cause a problem, because I was already trying to juggle, you know, what was I going to do? How was I going to live? Because I didn't earn enough by myself to keep a roof over their head. And, you know, his whole thing was, you know, not going to pay a penny in child support, and, you know, this is all you're doing. It had nothing to do with me, which is hilarious, because it was 100% to do with him. If he had gotten the help that he needed when I asked him to, and as it was, I stayed 5 extra years, you know, hoping that he would eventually see for himself that he really needed to. Nope, nothing. The irony was, once I had moved out, then he went to get help. I'm like, really, jackass?
Yeah.
Really?
He only got 5150'd more times than you have fingers on your hand.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, which is California's psychiatric hold. That's where they hold you for 72 hours for evaluation, if you prove to be a danger to yourself or others. And so, yeah, he was in there, oh my God, so many times. I think he was in there 12 times in 5 years. Something like that. It was a lot. He was in there a lot. And it was really hard because, you know, he took me to court for custody of the kids, which he never needed to have, shouldn't have had, and really didn't want, but wanted to keep me completely stressed out and unable to do what I needed to do for them, because that was his way of getting even. And so, yeah, he would call ex parte hearings, and I'd have to take another day off of work, and I'd have to go down there, and I'd have to get respite care for the kids, because these are not, remember, these kids have special needs, which means you don't just leave them with a sitter. You have to have somebody with extra knowledge in how to take care of them. So every time he pulled this crap where we had to go to the courthouse in 72 hours, because that's what an ex parte hearing is, I had to go through the whole thing again of, you know, trying to find out who was available and how to cover the payment for them and what to, I mean, it was just, you know, it was a level of hell that nobody should have to endure. And thanks to him, I did for a very long time. 6 years we went to court over this. And the irony is, and you know, while we were trying to get that all established, and I started out trying to be very amicable about, you know, I did want him to have access to the kids, but I didn't want him to have them when it was too much for him. So when the problem is, when that's the case, is I had to rely on the fact that he was going to be up front when he was having a difficult time with his mental health, and be able to say to me, I know it's supposed to be my weekend with the kids, but you know, I'm not really doing that well, and so I'd like to not come in this weekend, and maybe I can go to dinner with them next week, which would be fine. So, but he never did really get to a point where he could be trusted to do that, and so that became a whole long thing too. We had law enforcement a couple of times, and oh yeah. So yeah, but again, so I was trying to balance all of that. Neil was trying to balance, you know, finalizing his divorce, and you know, this you guys will find interesting. He retired at Fort Lewis, which was in Washington State, and apparently, and correct me if I'm wrong, dear, when I get up to this point, apparently in Washington State, your military pension is considered property for divorce settlement. I don't know all the ins and outs about it, but that
well,
meant...
it isn't just Washington State, it's a federal law.
Oh, that you have to give your spouse part of
50% of
your
your
retirement.
retirement. Yeah.
Yeah, so he was, in the meantime, trying to figure out how he was going to survive and where he was going to survive, and telling his kids, who are young adults at this point, you know, hey, we're getting a divorce. And so, yeah, needless to say, we had loose ends up the wazoo that we had to figure out before we could even think about trying anything together, which in a way was probably good, because that meant we had to spend longer than we might have otherwise getting to know each other and trying to figure out, hey, is this something that's really doable? Because he'd been married, you know, almost 29 years. I'd been married 15 years. He'd had a couple of kids. I had the 3 kids. You know, his were growing in and out of the house. Mine were still at home. I mean, just trying to figure out, is this even a workable thing? Because even when you hear it spoken, it sounds like disorganized chaos at its finest, right? So we're trying to figure out, and we were like, okay, well, one of us is going to have to move, because we can't do this, you know, a couple of states away. And so he grew up in Southern California, so his family was still down here. So, you know, he decided, well, it makes the most sense for me to go ahead and move down there, because, you know, I had the kids in services, one of which, Tri-County's Regional Center, that my youngest is a participant in their program, and their lifetime services for developmentally disabled people and people that require similar services depending on whatever their diagnosis is. And so if I leave California, if he leaves California, then that ends. And so, and he was a little bitty kid at the time we were talking about this. I mean, Neil was here for his 3rd birthday, and he's 28. So he's been in our lives 25 years now. So, but at that time I was like, you know, I'm going to be by myself trying to take care of them. I really don't have the ability to take him out of state and try to get some other kind of help for him. And so, you know, yeah, so if you wanted to come down here, that would be great. And I was very upfront. I said, listen, this is taking a toll on me, and I already had stuff taking a toll on me, and I didn't know, you know, I said, I can't promise you what this is going to be. I said, and I did try to tell him, you don't want to be part of this life, because it was levels of chaos and services and behavior teams and therapists and, you know, you name it, it was a thing. And so I tried to warn him, didn't I, honey?
Yeah.
And so what did you think when you finally got down here? You may be honest.
Well,
I mean, did you have any idea until you saw it what was really happening down here?
well, no. And her ex and I went round and round a couple of times. we got into a shoving contest at one point. I was waiting for him to swing, but he never did. I had gone to drop the kids off to him for his visitation, and Wendy had asked me to ask him for a support check that he was supposed to give her. And I did, and he refused, and I made a nasty comment to him, and he got upset and came over and said, "Say it again." Then comes up to me at my driver's door. I was out of the car and says, "Say it to my face." So I said it again, which just infuriated him, because I don't think anybody had ever stood up to him like that.
You know, this is the thing about men. That testosterone stuff, I'm telling you. Yeah, it was the whole thing. And I had, I didn't want to, because he would try to hold it over my head and say, well, you have to come here and get it, and so he could be a jerk. And I was like, no, you're not going to get to do that. So fine, don't give it to me, and then you can handle it the next time you drag me into court, which I knew would be any time now. And it always blew up in his face, but he didn't learn. Sometimes they don't learn. And so, yeah, it was, so I always tried to avoid having those kind of situations arise by, saying, hey, when you go over there, there were a few years there where we had to exchange them at the local police department because he could not be trusted. And even when he was under treatment for his mental health, he didn't always take his medication like he was supposed to. And so that was a problem. And still, these poor kids, all three of them, little kids, okay, they were 9, 5, and 2. And I had to let them go and be with him overnights, which pissed me off so badly. I can't even tell you, because they weren't safe with him. I knew it. Everyone knew it. Found out later part of the problem was we had a misogynistic judge for our custody battle, which again didn't find out till we were 2 or 3 years into it, that he'd had an affair with his bailiff. And now here we go. Why he wasn't disbarred and taken off the bench in family court, I don't know. He'd had an affair with his bailiff. She left him for another officer. I don't know what his rank was. About that time, wifey found out what was going on. She divorced him, took everything, house, car, kids, you name it. Needless to say, he didn't have a high opinion of women. He should never have been on the bench. So that's a whole nother thing. But anyway, but not knowing any of that at the time, trying to just navigate through there. And I mean, it was awful. Because, if you ever have to go for a hearing, you can't discuss anything or talk about anything unless you file it first. So every single time, that he played this little, oh, I need an ex parte right now because, this, that, and the next thing. You guys, he made our lives a living hell, and no one would do anything about it because they didn't want to step on the rights of the mentally ill. Didn't matter how many rights of the innocents he was stepping on. They couldn't have cared less. Now, my kids are grown men now with children of their own, and they still have a bitter taste in their mouth about family law because of how badly it was handled. And I made as much of a stink as I could, so much so that the court finally assigned an attorney for the children because I would not shut up and go away. Of course not, because you're trying to talk about my kids and letting somebody that was as psycho as he was be around them unsupervised. Yet no, over my dead body. So that happened, and so yeah, the kids ended up with their own attorney at the expense of the court. And that's when things started to get a little better, because, and I didn't say a word, I just let the attorney find out how psycho he was. Then he got 5150'd again and tried to hide it from the court. His lawyer tried to hide it. That was the end of his favoritism in the court. Things got better, but by then so much damage had been done that it almost didn't matter. But a couple years after that, now remember, years, he finally got reprimanded, and I found out some stuff about the judge, because we had tried to get a change of courtroom. We finally both ended up having to get an attorney we couldn't afford because it was just so out of hand. First thing my attorney did was tell me what had happened with this judge. And I'm like, you have to be kidding. He goes, yeah, we need to get you out of there. And the judge at that point wouldn't let us go. Nope, too much has been done about this case, so I need to continue to preside over it. I, again, was livid. And so I told my attorney that it's up to you to call him out every time he does a bunch of bullshit. Which he did. And I'm sure it was hard for him because they were golfing buddies on Wednesdays, which I also have a problem with. But he did. While he was in court, he called him out on it. I don't think my attorney thought much of him as a judge, even though they were, golf buddies. It ultimately ended up okay, but like I said, a lot of damage was done prior to that. 6 years is a very long time to be in a custody battle. But he wanted to cause me as much grief as possible, and I was not about to give him my kids. So that's where that ended up. He finally learned to stop being stupid, but he had to be threatened first. And he got reprimanded finally. The judge said, if you come to court again over nothing, Mr. So-and-so, you are going to end up with a bench warrant because you are wasting the court's time. And I started calling him out on it too. And as soon as the judge knew that I knew what his history was, yeah, he soft pedaled it a little bit more. But yeah, he thought nothing had given me the grief that he thought all women should have had because of his own experience. So, I mean, you guys, it was like the Keystone Cops go to court. I mean, it was awful for years and years and years.
What was that thing they used to say to you when they'd ask you something and you'd try to answer it and it wasn't answered the way they wanted it?
I don't remember. Yeah, there was something that they used to say standard. And I wasn't the only one, you guys. We saw, because we were there, like I said, 6 years. We used to call ourselves the Room 38 alumni because we would get the same people every time that there was a continuance, which happened all the time. I'm telling you, there was job security in it, is what I think was happening. They would forward it to the next available date. Well, we were all forwarded to the same date because we were all there on the same date. We went through a couple of pregnancies with the court reporter. We had several discussions with the bailiff and who was cutting his hair. You just have no idea the ridiculousness of it all. And so we kept seeing the same people. And we saw people repeatedly go, I can't do this anymore. I'm going to lose my job. I'm going to be unable to provide for anybody because I cannot keep coming to court. This is continued. So I'm fine, take them. And we saw people literally write off their children because they could not continue to go to court every few weeks till positive infinity. It was ridiculous. We saw, and of course, he made repeated horrible decisions anytime a woman was concerned. I will never forget, this one poor woman was in there. She had 3 little kids under 5. their father was in prison. Well, he was in jail for domestic abuse, so he had to sit in we called it the convict corner, because anytime they brought him over from the jail, they had to sit in that same location where they could be monitored and the whole thing. And so she finally said, listen, and he was going to be in jail for 10 years or more. I mean, he had a huge sentence. And she said, I have a job opportunity in Northern California with family. I have a family member that owns a restaurant. I can provide for the kids. They will have health care. I need to be able to go. And they would not allow her to go and leave the area, because he was allowed an hour a week visit while he was in jail. And he wouldn't give up his hour a week visit with the children so she could go and create a life somewhere else. And that stupid imbecile of a judge kept that going on behalf of the prisoner at the expense of her and the 3 children. I will never forget. I mean, because we watched it unravel. We saw the whole thing happen, because they started coming in right after his arrest. He hadn't even been arraigned yet, and they were already coming in because she already had protective orders against him before he ever got arrested. So we saw it for years. It just continually went on and on and on. And the level of disgust, you guys, I can't even tell you. Anyway, needless to say, that was also going on at the same time. I tried to warn him. He did not want any part of this life, because it was not going to be what he thought. And this poor guy had already raised his family. They were already, off on their own and having their own kids. And, he was just trying to get out of a bad marriage while there was still life left, So, but I just didn't feel like it would be fair to him to have to jump into the deep end where I had to be all the time because of what my kids needed. And, a lot of what was happening and why the divorce took so long was he did not want to be responsible for any of the bills that were being incurred for the kids' services. And, he only had to pay his 50% of the co-payments until he lost us our insurance, and that was a whole nother thing. But anyway, he did not want to have to do that, and honest to God, you guys, this was another reason why the kids were assigned an attorney, separate from my attorney, separate from their dad's attorney, was because he said that there was nothing wrong with the kids. I had Munchausen by proxy. And these were kids, all 3, that had extreme special needs. So the first reason that the lawyer was assigned was because he was told to find out whether or not they actually had special needs. I kid you not. Well, by the time they talked to the behaviorist and all the therapists for all the kids, and the occupational therapists and the physical therapists, and, all of the school districts and all of the IEPs that they had, which I provided to them in triplicate, yeah, he looked pretty stupid for having said that. But we had to endure that too.
Should tell them about the nuclear bomb.
Oh, someday.
Okay.
But needless to say, imagine this though, you guys. Here we are, trying to start a relationship, even to see if there is a relationship to be had after all the conversations and all the talking for all the months on end, and all this shit going on in the background. I mean, can you even imagine? Do you have any idea what that was like? Oh my God. And I was bawling my eyes out because I didn't know what I was going to do. And again, I couldn't keep a roof over their head because I didn't earn enough working 6 a.m. to noon, because I only had 30 hours a week. But if I worked more than that, I couldn't take them to their appointments. So they couldn't go unless I took them, because I couldn't afford to pay somebody what it would have cost to get all 3 kids to all of their appointments. Then I would have earned nothing. I would have been working just to pay them. So it was something. So, but he was stubborn. He's a Taurus. So he moved down anyway, and moved into a place and allowed us to move in and pay part of the rent so that we could have a roof over our head. And by doing that, you guys, the woman-hating, misogynistic piece of shit judge. Now remember, I'd been married 15 years. We'd been together almost 20. Denied me alimony because I was living with a man. So yeah, all the crap, all the psychosis, and he didn't want any part of the kids having any help because he said they're going to grow up anyway. You know, you're dumb to get them help. Why bother? They're going to have to figure it out anyway, because he raised himself. He had 60s parents who, you know, the 60s were a little too good to them, and he literally raised himself. So he didn't see why kids that already had challenges should have any help. So needless to say, we didn't see eye to eye. And then he decided, well, fine, then you take care of it, but I'm not having any part of it, and I shouldn't have to pay anything. Now, forget about the fact that, you know, they're his children. He did not feel at any time he needed to be responsible for any of their expenses. Period. End of discussion. That was all on me if I was going to be dumb enough to actually get them some help for their issues. Well, and here's the real irony. You know, my older two kids are adopted, so you don't do that by accident, right? He had to sign on the dotted line. The judge told us when we adopted them, you understand that these kids are now your responsibility for the rest of your life, and that they are entitled to be your heir apparent. Whether you have biological kids or not, they are still going to be your heir. So you better understand that before you ask me to sign it's okay for you to keep them forever. I mean, so you have to go through a lot. If you have never adopted, you have no idea what you have to go through. So the fact that he would stand there and think that he didn't have to participate in their upbringing is really something. And I mean really something. So yeah, so Neil just came down here, got a job, and had to, you know, because as a military retiree, I mean, that would never have been enough for us to survive. Like, he had to work. So, and then that became a challenge because he was unemployed a lot. So, did a lot of temp work, did whatever he had to do so that we could survive. And thank God, because again, I couldn't have done it alone. So, as difficult as it was for the kids to have a stepdad, and as much as they did not see eye to eye a lot.
Well, especially with the older one.
Yeah, you can't mix ADD, ADHD, and retired military. It's just not a good idea. I don't recommend. 0 stars, do not do. We had to learn a lot about how to navigate this, and I dragged Neil to every seminar, workshop, everything I could find about the kids' issues so that he would have a greater understanding, because I understood that he had not had the benefit of learning from the beginning like I did. He thought I was way too lenient as a parent, and I knew that he was way too strict for kids that had this kind of stuff going on. And I could see it was just going to be combustible if they did not understand and learn how to cope with each other. So, yeah, it was not without its difficulties, to say the very least. But we're still here, and they all survived into adulthood, and my ex remarried a lady who had a kid in the same preschool as my oldest. So, needless to say, that was quite a time. So, yeah, but I knew at the time, it was going on, that this was not for the faint of heart. I didn't know whether or not he had the stamina or even wanted to, be a party to it, because, it was going to get uglier before it got better. So, and I tried to warn him, but, I don't know. What was your motivation, Neil, especially once you found out that this was not what you bargained for?
Well, because I'd made a commitment, and I was going to stick to it. It was pretty rough at times. We had a lot of arguments about what was going on with the kids, especially Mr. ADD. Because he would outright attack me. Because he was all pissed off that his parents got divorced, and I was the culprit, and it was just bad.
Yeah, now remember, the oldest one also was 9 when we got married, and really, assigned himself to be the man of the house, no matter how badly I tried to tell him, no, that was not going to be the case. That was not his responsibility. He was going to make it his responsibility, and so he felt like he was, in charge of security for the entire family, and he did not trust Neil one iota. And he wasn't the one that I found hard. I found the one that had sociopathy, the second kid. I found much harder to deal with because he was insidious. He would sneak things and do things that would cause everybody grief that you might not find out about for a couple of days till it rained on your head. He was way harder for me.
Yeah, he wasn't
the older
a joy.
one, the older one was blatant. I mean, he would tell on himself because he was not a good liar. Middle kid was a great liar. So, it was a lot for us to try to figure out and juggle. But, so Neil got the older one right at the time when he was trying to be a teenager. And, it wasn't pretty. And his dad would tell him all kinds of lies and all kinds of crap. And, I had to let them go. Otherwise, I go to jail because I was under a court order. And it was, there were some real times, guys. The fact that we all survived it's kind of amazing. But when we got married, 5 years later, he got married after going through all kinds of stuff, and his new wife, who is the same person that had the kid that was in the preschool with my oldest. She had to call the police on him a couple times. She even called me a couple times when he left in a huff because she was afraid he was coming over to my house. And I said, well, if he comes here, Neil has weapons, and it's not going to be pretty because he's going to be treated like any other trespasser because he was not invited over here. So it was a lot, you guys. You guys have no idea the exciting stuff that went on. And here I am the whole time trying to keep him calm, trying to keep my kids safe, and keep my sanity. Because if I went into the mental hospital, they had no one, literally no one. So it was real exciting there for a bit. So yeah. And did you guys find it interesting? At no time did you hear him say that I was so wonderful and he loved me so much that I was worth him going through all of this. Did you guys all notice that?
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, exactly. So it makes you wonder how we got here, huh? I know. Sometimes we wonder. We kind of sit here and go, where did the time go? And what were we doing? And how did we end up here? And we had to move twice. So during all this, because that is the life of a renter. We didn't buy a place till we moved here almost 10 years ago. So, right? So, I mean, it's a lot, you guys. You just don't even know what what transpired. Anyway, we haven't even gotten on to the next question yet, but so that was the whole, how we met and got involved, and, it kind of got sort of just, I don't even know what the word is, washed up in it or swept up into it. I mean, there was so much already happening by the time he moved down here. I moved out and in with him, and the kids were going one to the other, and oh God, it was awful. In the meantime, his kids, I guess, felt some kind of way about him leaving. What he didn't tell you is his ex asked him to stay with her up there until she finished school. She was learning, I don't know, some kind of admin skills or something. He'll have to explain that. I don't know.
Yeah, she was taking a course on how to be an administrative specialist, and I thought, okay, I'm going to stay until she completes that, gets a job, and can, support herself.
Because she had been a stay-at-home mom his whole military career.
Yeah. And so she completes the school, and I don't know, there were a dozen people, I guess, in her class that completed the school. And at graduation, every one of them had a job offer except her. And so I stuck around, and she applied and she applied, and thought she was going to get hired a couple of times, and it didn't happen. And then at the time we were pretty involved with church, and she finally decided, I'm not going to do this. I'm going to concentrate on my quote-unquote ministry, and I'm going to do that. And I mentally threw up my hands and I said, okay, that's it, I'm out of here. Because I had given her every opportunity to keep her head above water, and it was, obvious that she had no interest in that.
So, and ultimately, she'd had a couple of strokes.
A couple of years after I left.
Yeah. And so, I guess she started acting a little off. And his kids, his daughter, he has a daughter that's older, and then he had a son about 18 months later or so. And so they tried to, I don't know, what's the word, handle her or...
Yeah. Care for her.
Yeah, take care of her. And his daughter moved her in with her for a while, and she started doing weird stuff. And, clearly it was dementia, but I don't know. It took a while for them, I guess, to figure that out. And, of course, then they blamed him for leaving her up to them to handle. I totally disregarding the fact that, hey, they had been in the process of divorce for a very long time before that, and that he had tried to set the stage so that she was able to take care of herself and did what, you know, she wanted to do, which she said was to go and get this training so she could get a job and take care of herself. But needless to say, none of that worked out. So and she did ultimately, we had been together, I don't know how long had we been together when she passed away. The kids ended up having to commit her to like a memory care location, and then she ultimately passed away. She had trouble swallowing, and anyway, she passed away.
We'd been together like 12 years.
Yeah, at that point. And we didn't even know she'd passed away, except that one month, we all of a sudden, instead of him getting half of his military pension, he got the whole thing. And we thought, what's going on with that? And then we found out, he said, I think that she may have passed away. He had to work to get a hold of his daughter, because they stopped speaking to him shortly after they had to deal with their mother. And I mean, he's tried to connect with them and talk to them, but they're having none of it for whatever reason.
I don't even have numbers or addresses for them anymore.
Yeah, which means, you know, he also has no relationship with his grandkids either. So, and it was interesting, one of the positive things that came out of me dragging him along to every workshop, seminar, and conference we could find about the kids' issues is that he realized how serious the issues his son had growing up, that neither he nor his ex realized.
Yeah. Well, we took him to be evaluated a couple of times, and nobody could figure out what was going on other than he had a learning disability.
Yeah, I mean, clearly, you know, he had neurological stuff too. And the only way he realized it was, you know, was he was learning, and we were learning, you know, what the latest treatments were for kids that had, you know, that were what they now call neurodiverse. At that time, they didn't have a word for it, other than slow, hyper, not enough effort, all the same buzzwords that they've used for generations of kids. But he realized, and I remember, because I said, you know, what are you doing? Because we were getting ready, because we were taking a break from one of the seminars we'd gone to, and he just looked up and he goes, I see a lot of my son in here. And that was a surprise to me, because we really hadn't talked much about, you know, what had gone on with his kids. I mean, I knew some of it, but I didn't know a lot of it, because it was obviously a point of pain and stress. And so I didn't push him to talk about it when he didn't want to. So I was surprised to hear that come out. I said, really? He said, yes, you know, we had a lot of these same issues and did not know much about what it was stemming from or what to do about it. And so, and remember, this was a military family, so they moved around a lot. So, you know, whatever help might have been available, everybody had to start from the beginning, depending on where they ended up being transferred to. So that's always detrimental too, because you don't have the backup to go on. I mean, they should, but the reality is, you know, they don't. And it takes a while for paperwork to catch up with you when you're being, you know, moved around the country. So,
Yeah, it's always, you know, if you've got an ongoing medical condition, you know, you get transferred and you get to your new base, and, you know, and you've got to go and, you know, go on sick call and talk to the medic, and then, you know, they make an appointment with the doctor, and then you've got to start all over again with a new physician and go through all these tests again and all the rest of this stuff. You know, even though, you know, they can look at your medical records, it's just a lot.
Yeah, so needless to say, they don't make it easy. And if you do have something ongoing you're being treated for, and remember they all had TRICARE too, which is different for active duty than it is for retirees, I found out the hard way. So, you know, there are just, it's not made easy. There are obstacles each time. And so, you know, when they're moving you every couple, 2 to 3 years, I mean, you know, and meanwhile, life has to go on. I mean, you know, kids are growing up, things are happening, different schools are happening, different things are being said. I mean, there was just a lot. So, I mean, I think it worked in our favor that we're both stubborn. And we both believed in commitment, and we weren't about to give up on each other, no matter who was having to deal with crap from their extended family at any given time, which we alternated on that for quite a while. So yeah, but so that's how we met and how we ended up together, and a lot of the complexities of staying together and what that meant, and the things we had to do in order to do that, and what we found out about each other and about ourselves through that, and having to be willing to listen and not just talk, which I think was hard, because, you know, let that be a lesson to all of you. It's a cautionary tale. Don't be so busy being right that you forget to listen to what the other person is saying and thinking and feeling, because they have a right too. They're in this relationship also. And if you never take their feelings and how they feel and what they're thinking into account, there won't be a relationship to be in, to think about anymore. So, you know, and it's okay to need help with that. I mean, we had a couple of different therapists. I think probably the one we have now has been the best for us as a family. But had we not had them to fall back on when we felt like we weren't getting our point across, we probably wouldn't have made it, because there were some really hard years. But, you know, we got through it. All of the kids are grown. We managed to make a life that we both are okay with most of the time. And so that's an important factor. As far as how long we've been married, we just celebrated our 21st wedding anniversary in March. We were married on 3/2/23 because we thought that was cool. So March 22nd, 2003 was the day we got married. So, yep, it's been 21 years. We're still here. You know, we've still had obstacles. But you know, we're both still alive. That's pretty good. Some days that's the best you can hope for. Everybody's head is still attached when they went to bed. Hey, it's a banner day. So, tell your people you love them. Be sure that you call your mothers or whoever was a mother to you tomorrow. Make sure that you let them know how grateful you are that they're in your life, because there will come a time when you won't be able to do that anymore. So, everyone, have a great day. We will take this up at the next WIP M Chat. We will talk about how we got into fostering bearded dragons. And we will also, Master of Jedi wanted to know, does Neil come from an army background, and what made him go into the army, and what our favorite comfort foods are, and what's the first canvas that we completed. So we'll try to have those here so we can show them to you. We laugh now, but anyway, so yeah, so we will continue that. And again, if any of you have more questions that you'd like to have for the next WIP M Chat, leave them in the comments, and we will add them to the list to talk about next time. And we want to thank you guys for spending this long hour with us. We hope that all of you are having a great weekend. Everybody be good to your moms and your surrogate moms tomorrow. Have a wonderful day. Weather's warming up, guys. Woo! So, yeah, enjoy that. And we will certainly talk to you in the next one. Did you have anything you wanted to add, honey?
No.
Alrighty then. So we will see you next week. And remember, always be a dragon. Spread your wings. Protect those you love. Have fiery passion. Stay strong, slay your fears, and always fly high, rise up, and soar. Okay, everybody, have a great rest of your weekend, and we will see you in the next one. Bye, guys.